Okay, we're still waiting for a quorum. We've got administrators. We don't have board members yet. So hang in there. All members of the public.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Nikki, I said I don't mind scratching some minutes down tonight. I don't, unless somebody else feels compelled. Colleen did it last time at the.
Maybe it would help if I took myself off mute. I said I always scratch notes too. So we'll get it all pulled together and I'll try to scratch more than normal. Beth, do you mind doing a minimum of notes?
I can try. I don't have my computer, so I just am on my iPad, but I can go old school.
I mean,
yeah. I can also, I can take down motions and votes.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the motions pretty much. And
let me grab a pen and I can.
Okay.
Does anybody have the?
I can do that.
I think if we get the motions in just, I don't think we've been pretty good about not scratching everything down.
And we'll be recording, of course. So that.
And we're going to record. So that's always what I'll do sometimes, like I can send like if Beth says she'll do it tonight, I can send the recording to Beth. So in case there's something she might've forgotten or.
Because I want to watch a school board meeting all over again.
I bet you do.
I just totally wouldn't. Yeah.
You do.
Does Lori watch them?
No, Lori does not watch them. No.
Good for her.
Okay.
So let me know, and I think you've got a quorum now, so I can tell me when you want to start recording, and we can start recording.
Yeah, I think we could start recording. We have everyone, right? Sarah's got.
We do.
Yep. Yes, so let's start recording. We'll call the meeting to order.
All right, we are going to be recording this public session. Just give it a second. There it is. We are now recording.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:03. And so the first thing will be changes and additions to the agenda. You have any? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any.
That is a no. Okay. So then the approval of minutes of January 4th. David, who are these? Lori?
Yeah, I think Lori did I think I scratched notes and then I gave them to Lori, and
Okay.
I think that's how it happened last time.
Okay. Awesome. So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of January 4th.
So moved.
Okay, that was Scott. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Colleen, second. Okay. Okay, so we'll go into a discussion. I had two comments on those minutes. One is Christine's name is mistyped under the FY23 budget. Got some extra eyes in it.
Beth, do you want to just put those in whatever notes you're taking, Beth? Is that okay?
Oh, I can write it down too.
Yeah, I just want to get them to Lori so she can clean them up.
And then the other thing that kind of bothered me because it didn't capture the conversation correctly was under the FY23 budget. Discussion ensued about putting money in the budget for the ski program. Is this year the year to underwrite the program? And it was 50,000 plus or minus. I used to have stickies all over my desk, and I think once we approved the budget, I threw them away. I don't feel like that's totally the discussion that happened. We decided to fund it at 50%. So do we want to include that in these notes? Because it's not
If
fully.
everybody remembers it that way, that'd be good.
Christine, do you remember what the exact number was?
I think we said 50%.
Okay. So I think we'll say roughly.
So it should be 50%, not 50,000.
Right.
Got it.
50% of the budget.
But we did adjust the budget. It was 50%. It was half of 50, roughly half of 50,000,
Okay.
as I recall.
Okay. So
That's what I remember too.
yeah, that's, so does anybody have an idea of how to add that to the minutes? It just, to me, feels like it was a yes or no in here, and the final outcome was not.
What, I mean, would it make sense to just, I would make a motion that we amend the minutes to reflect that the board decided to fund the ski program at 50% of the budgeted amount.
Okay.
And I think if everybody agrees, you can just amend those minutes. I don't even think you need a motion necessarily.
Right. Yeah, I think we can just, and I don't even know that we need a full sentence. I mean, we just need a bullet that says board decided to fund it at 50%.
Yeah.
To me, that second sentence, the "is this the year" sentence, that's the one that kind of throws it in the wrong direction for me.
Right, exactly.
And I would I just get rid of that one, and and then add that detail about the board decided at 50% of 50.
I think that makes sense.
Did we vote on it?
Did we what?
Was it a part of, is it something we voted on?
No, well, because it's
No.
it's part of the budget. So yes, and
Okay.
we didn't vote on that specifically. We voted
I just wanted to
on the overall budget.
clarification.
I just didn't like the way it read.
I agree.
It didn't capture the conversation.
That's why I think you can just make that note, just change that.
So I'll ask Lori to change it to, it was decided the ski program would be funded at 50%, which is approximately $25,000.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
work?
So you'll just, Lori will make that change.
With that too. Okay, that was were all of the comments that I had. Anyone else? Okay, so is everybody ready to vote? Thumbs up. Okay, so I think I have to do a roll call on this one. So who's ready? Colleen, you're first.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Beth?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Awesome. Okay, minutes are approved from January 4th. Oh, and I say aye too. Okay, so we have public participation and announcements. So we'll take any additional public participation for anything that is not on the agenda today. And we just ask that people keep public participation to a short amount of time so that we can get through our agenda. Have anything?
Yeah, I've sent a message, and I've also asked, what is the school board doing to protect my child who is currently out of school and has been a victim of harassment at Hartland Elementary. And I have not received a response from the school board, from Dr. Baker, or from the principal addressing very specific harassment and discrimination complaints. And I'm wondering what the school board's role is in protecting children in this district.
I think you can answer the last part of that. I would not get into any specific issues about a particular child in public session. But if you want to ask the last part, if you want to answer the last part about that, about what your role is.
So just for the record, I read the email about, like, that's why I was late signing on, because I just got the email. So I don't have a response crafted yet.
But you have received other communication, right, Nikki, over the last 2 weeks that this has been going on, and I have yet to receive any official response. So let's just clarify that.
You've received multiple official responses. There have been multiple meetings, and I've spent about 20 hours of the last 2 weeks on this topic. So
I have not received any official response, Nikki. I have not received
from the school board. No, because we are the school board.
I have not received a single response from Dr. Baker or Christine Bourne. Today, I received an email from Christine Bourne that said that there'd be some change in giving me a waiver. There was no response to my emails about harassment and discrimination. I have received absolutely zero communication whatsoever from Dr. Baker, Christine Bourne, or this school district, school board about very specific harassment and discrimination. It has been silent.
So Kara,
the board is meeting. So yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I just want to let you know that I only received the email about 2 minutes before the meeting started. So
that's really unfortunate, Sarah, because I've been communicating with Dr. Baker and Christine Bourne for almost 2 weeks now. And I've also been communicating with Nikki Buck and CCing her on all of the emails that have been going on. So I'm not quite sure why the rest of the school board hasn't been included in all of that. But lots of communication has happened from me to them and not reciprocated.
So Kara, the board meets once a month, and we only discuss these things once a month during our meetings. I personally,
my children haven't been in school since last week.
Right. Yep. I'm aware.
Yep.
So I think we can take this up in executive session. I don't think we want to talk about individual children in this moment.
I'm only bringing this up publicly, Nikki, because privately when I send emails, nobody responds. And it's been 2 weeks now. And my only responses from David Baker are threats and dismissive and Christine Bourne has 100% ignored this situation. So this is why I have had to post on listserv and social media and come to this public forum to talk about very private matters, because apparently that is the only way for things to happen in this district that are right. Because we have to shed some light on what's happening, because behind closed doors, folks are just really comfortable not doing what's right.
So I think if we have no further public participation, we'll keep going with the agenda.
Super.
So we'll go on to the principal's report.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Nope. Oh,
Not yet. Is it coming?
not yet. I can't see that you've done
Okay.
anything.
Good.
Yeah, now we got it.
All right, great. Okay, tonight's report will not be long based on the other things we have on the agenda for the evening. Let me see if I can toggle back and forth. All right, so just an update on the month and what we've been working on at school, and what we will be working on. We have our next community grab and go dinner scheduled for February 24th. I've included the link. If you haven't signed up, I would encourage you to do so. It's a great community event with lots of participation from parents and community members, and it's a way for us to stay connected, which is important, especially during this time of COVID where community is not allowed in the building. We are just finishing up our winter exact path diagnostic assessment. It's mostly finished. Our goal is to finish by the end of January, but we've had so much COVID over the last month that we have some kids that still need to finish it. Once we have all the data, our interventionists have been leading data deep dives with grade level teams. They look at the data and set goals based on where the kids are at and where the needs are. And so this is a practice that they've started, and they'll actually review the fall exact path data and the goal that they set, and see if they've met the goals, and then adjust the goals for the current data. We've started. We had a great month of January teaching all about being proactive. We had a lot of kids that were recognized for demonstrating that habit, and staff as well. This month, we're going to move on to the Leader in Me habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind, which is about goal setting and visualizing kind of the end and how to get there. So those are the things that are going on currently and will happen this month. I have some good news on the hiring front. We were able to hire a BCBA, Elizabeth. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She started last Monday with us, and we put her right to work. She's getting to know teachers and routines and kids, and she'll be doing some behavioral assessments as soon as she kind of is acclimated to the building and the kids. We were able to hire one special ed support staff member. His name is David Deschamps. He comes with experience, and he also started last Friday. He's been helping out all over the place currently, because we do have some needs in the building in terms of people out. So we're excited because hiring has been really challenging this year. Tina normally comes and does her IDL update, but she really helped with a budget presentation, so I didn't ask her to come present in the principal's report tonight, but the work continues. This is a 4th grade class. They've been working with Edison robots, doing programming, and actually a lot of the classes have been using these robots and learning to program them. So,
Christine, can you do a full screen on that so that
I can try? Let me see. How's
I made
is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like
Yeah.
There's a kids in the school.
And those robots, those are they're called Edison, and she had ordered them, and they got stuck in customs during COVID and supply chain issues, but they finally came in, and she and the kids have been raving about them. So this is 4th grade. They mapped out Hartland, and then they had to program the robots to drive around to the various places in Hartland. So it was a very hands-on, student-led activity, which was great. COVID update this month. We shifted our protocols from test to stay to test at home officially a couple of weeks ago. We've had a number of cases this month, 44 cases to be exact, that have impacted school. And the community has been super supportive and understanding in the shift. We've been sending test kits home, and parents have been great about sending in results and following the processes that are in place. So it's a lot to get the tests out every day or on days when we have cases, which seems to be pretty consistent. This month we've had cases on most days and on the weekends. So we've made it work. We do have enough test kits, which was a concern. Lori has been great. Lori Brown at the central office has been great about getting us test kits. We're still contact tracing. which takes a little bit of time, but it's something we have to do. And we're following the return to play guidance that has come down from the VPA and the American Academy of Pediatrics and our local pediatricians. So that's the COVID update. I'm sure David may have a little bit more information in his report. And then I just added Exact Path. I know Exact Path is a new program that we're using, and there will be an official kind of report out at the SU board meeting, I believe, in March. But just a little background for you: the program was piloted in actually 2019 and 2020, and again in 20 and 21. I think there were 3 different programs we were looking at, and narrowed it down to 2. Exact Path was selected. So it is in full implementation this year. And the requirements of that program are 30 minutes in each subject area per week, and that's reading, ELA, and math. Diagnostic is given 3 times a year. It is not supposed to be an assessment that takes kids a long time to do, but we are finding that for some kids it does. So those are things we're talking about with as a team, and with the Exact Path team as well. The way that it works, students are given a learning path based on how they do on the diagnostic assessment, and teachers can also assign specific tasks in particular areas. I know there is a plan to put out a survey to staff. I know the curriculum, instruction, and assessment team will be putting out a survey to staff, and we'll be doing some student interviews to gather data on how it's going with Exact Path, which I believe Angie plans to report out in March. But if there are questions or comments or concerns, I'm happy to address what I can.
Christine, do you know, have we already purchased Exact Path going forward? Like, is it a done deal, or do we have a chance to revisit?
I think it's an annual contract, but I will rely on Angie, who is present, to answer that.
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
Thanks, Angie.
It is one of the items we put as in. I don't think it's funded out of ESSER, but is something, the data is something we're relying on to see that we're making progress in terms of academics with students. I know we've adjusted when it's used, especially at the middle level, and adjusted the school schedule to provide time within the day for what we call what I need, which allows kids some time to work on it. That shift happened, I believe, at the end of last week, so it's just in the beginning stages.
Is there anywhere that the school board members or parents or members of the community could go to just look to get a sense of kind of what it looks like, how kids interact with it? That's something that I just would be curious just to kind of see what
it looks like.
feels like, what it looks like, what the
Yeah. Again, I'm going to ask Angie that one. Angie, do you know if there is, other than their website, a place for parents to get more information on what it looks like?
It might be helpful if in March we did a demonstration, because we have not done a demonstration, which might be helpful. And I will put in the chat the link to Exact Path resources. They give you screenshots and that sort of thing, and some of the things that teachers would have available or that we would give to students about the program that might be helpful.
Great. That sounds great. And for everyone else, I'd heard some grumblings about the amount of time it was taking, and kids kind of complaining a little bit about it feeling like busy work and not being aligned with what they were doing the rest of the day. And so just wanted to get a sense, but I know it's very much a new thing, and everyone is kind of figuring out how it works. And so, yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about it, and just kind of, I think that going forward, I know we may need to do things for the next couple of years to kind of make up for some of the some of the COVID effects. But I guess, the idea of kids sort of learning things of substance on computers for significant portions of the day is concerning. And so I'd love to just kind of, stay on top of this and get some more information. And I'm curious what teachers and students have to say about it.
Yes. And we definitely want to hear from them, especially the kids, how it is going for them. I've been trying to go in and see it in action, and I think it depends on how it's being used. I think there is a place for practice of skills they're not directly working on, and I think that happens. I also know that a teacher can assign a task related to what kids are working on, so it is somewhat based on how the teachers are implementing it as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And,
that
and you might, and you might have said this already, Christine, but aren't we going to go around to each school and get a group of, try to get the students and get some feed? Did you already say that? Maybe I missed it.
I did. Yeah. Angie and
Okay.
her team, Brittany and Patty, are scheduling those meetings with teachers so they come in and talk to the kids about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Feedback is going to be critical.
Okay, I believe that is the end of my short report for tonight, so I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah.
Okay, David, you're up for the superintendent's report.
And mine will be brief too. Let me just share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah. So Christine pretty much went through the COVID update, so I'm not going to rehash that. We are going through about 800 tests a week across the supervisory union. So I, just like Christine, I give Lori a lot of credit for keeping up with it. I mean, keeping those tests available and ready to go home. I spent a good part of today at Wethersfield, and we had 2 cases there, and we had to notify parents and get kits out today. So I got a close-up view of how that works. We're still estimating that across the K-12 population, about 60% of our students are vaccinated. Presently, remember, a student makes sense, doesn't have to have a booster to be considered, fully vaccinated. So we're considering all of our students between the ages of, 5 through 16 as fully vaccinated. Wethersfield School, you probably saw that in one of my email blasts. They did a great job a couple of Saturdays ago setting up a clinic. There's going to be a follow-up. There's going to be a follow-up on the 19th. They had over between 75 and 80 people vaccinated at that clinic. And as Christine said, there's still that concern every day about the ability to staff a building on any particular day, just because of staff also either being close contacts or contracting COVID. Just some other general updates. All budgets are adopted and warned and posted in town halls and around towns. We're going to talk about the presentation tonight. Cold sub-degree temperatures are making the morning delay calls tough. We did one. I'm trying to avoid them as much as possible. It looks like we're going to have some interesting couple of days coming up here with weather, and the weather pattern just doesn't seem, it just seems right now, maybe it'll get a little clearer tomorrow, that it's not totally clear what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday. But at this time of year, what's really difficult, as many of you know, those back roads, especially the dirt roads, the ice mixed with precipitation creates a lot of havoc. And 3 of our districts have probably 80% of their kids, or at least 70 probably percent bused. So we have to keep an eye on those buses too. We talked about exact path. I won't go over that again. NAEP testing, you talked about that, Christine?
No, I did not, but it's happening next week. So go ahead, David.
Yeah. Well, NAEP testing is happening next week, and that's the National Assessment of Elementary Progress. Is it 4th and 8th in your building?
Yeah, it is. It'll
Yeah.
happen the 7th and the 8th next
Yeah.
week.
I will tell you, it's a lot of work for, well, for staff and especially administration. There's a lot of clerical work that goes along with it. Unfortunately, we don't get any local data. I mean, the Agency of Education ties our title monies to this testing program. So we have to participate or we don't get title money. And so we participate. I think the reason Vermont likes to participate in the NAEP is because that test usually indicates that Vermont does extremely well in, across the nation. We usually rank in the top, if not the top 10, even better than that, the top 5 sometimes. So we'll see how that goes. But we only get state data. We do not get local data. But it will take some time next week to make that happen. Equity audit, the equity work continues in this district and across our SU. We continue to work with Lavelle Brown and we work with Melissa Crum, and we just hired Mary Gannon to do some work around policy update and board training. But I think the real piece that's going to drive a lot of this is this equity audit. So the RFP is drafted. I'm going to get it out to the SU board to make sure they're okay with it, because what we need is really some baseline. We don't want to solve problems that we don't have. So we want to make sure that we've done a good audit, and the audit will look at things like policies, procedures, hiring practices, curriculum, instructional practices, probably take a look at our library collection. Just those kinds of things are in the RFP. And we'd like to start, obviously we will probably avoid anything heavy in the next couple of months. We'll probably start either later this spring, or we might even hold off the actual audit till next fall. And I have a second quarter financial update, which I'll share. I think that might, I'll show you that in a second. Teachers contract awaiting final signatures. All boards have ratified. It's done, it's out, and it'll take us this year, next year, and the year after. So that is completed. The support staff negotiation is complete. That's also going to be awaiting signatures, and you have to put that, that draft together, get it out to everybody, make sure they agree with the draft. But the good news is 3-year agreement with the teachers. This year is included in that, though, so it's really a 2-year agreement. And the support staff is a 3-year agreement that'll go from 22 through 25. So much to the, I think, comfort of both the teacher support staff and board negotiators, we're not going to have to go back to that table for a while. Let me just pull up that, hold on a second, and I will try to pull up that. Can everybody see that? Can you all see that?
Yes.
Because I can't see you.
Just barely.
We can see it.
Want me to make it bigger? I can make it bigger.
Yes, right there.
That's perfect.
Okay. Too big? No? Okay. Yeah. So this is the second quarter financials for Hartland. Essentially, you can look at the revenue lines and see where we stand, anticipating, if you look over here, 100% of the revenue to come in. Expenditures to date, total general fund expenditures, if you look down there, pretty much on track, not many big overages or underages except for benefits. And most of those benefit changes are due to people changing plans, or we hired a fair number of new staff this summer, so they take the single plan, or oftentimes the 2-person plan. So that has saved a little bit of money. So anticipating right now, as of February, we're at about 97% on the expenditure side. So this is where it stands right now. Projected revenues, $9,035,003, and projected expenditures, $8,802,221. So right now, and again, we're still just halfway through the year, maybe a little more than halfway through the year. We're still projecting a surplus of 232,782. But you know how that works. That could either go up or down over the next couple of months. Any questions on that second quarter financial? Okay, and I'm going to stop presenting. And if there are any questions on that report, that's fine. If not, I know we've got a pretty busy agenda getting ready for town meeting.
Okay. I'm not hearing any questions for David. So we'll go on to the town meeting discussion. Christine, do you want to pull it up or do you?
Yeah, I don't mind. Do you see it?
Okay. I think, yep, we can all see it.
Okay.
So Christine and I just wanted to go through with the board the thoughts on town meeting and get you guys' comment. So we should have this date on the top of my head, but we're presenting the last week of February on a Tuesday. I don't remember which day that is. Do you remember the exact day, Christine?
I believe it's the 22nd of February. Let me check.
Right.
Yeah, 22nd.
22nd. Yep.
Okay.
And I believe the meeting is at 7 p.m.
And it's virtual.
and it's virtual.
Okay, just tell me when you're ready. I'm the slide advancer. You
Okay.
ready?
Okay, so we'll blow through these first ones because they're kind of standard.
Okay.
There's the warning. You guys all signed it. Article 1 we're familiar with. 2 we're familiar with. Article 3, we had the confusion, the school district to pay taxes to the town treasurer. So I had the explanation that the school district includes all taxpayers residing in the district. It's not the school itself. Okay, going on. Article 4 is to borrow from the Capital Reserve Fund. And so we captured some pictures showing the sink plumbing, which is coming up through the concrete floor, which is failing. So we're going to move that to the wall. And then Craig showed me the existing service line, which includes like a 6-inch homemade plexiglass sneeze barrier versus what he's proposing to get, which is on the right. So if we can keep going. So Article 5 is what we're voting for. Article 5 is to borrow money, which is standard practice. And we'll keep going. Article 6 is the big article that we now present. I think we have like 10 slides to present on.
Okay.
Keep going. So this is our portrait of a graduate. And Christine, are you talking here or am I talking?
You're going to talk there, and I'm going to take over on the next slide.
Okay, perfect. So, so this is our, so this is the portrait of a graduate that we voted on in 2020. That includes our 5 key goals for all children that leave this SU to have empathy, perseverance, integrity, communication skills, and critical thinking. So I'll
all right
for now.
Okay, this is our first run through, so bear with us. All right, so then it'll be my turn to talk about future of education and what we're doing at Hartland. So I shared this slide, this graphic last spring, and I shared it because it summed up the exciting and necessary transformation that is happening in education. I also shared our newly adopted strategic plan and the goals outlined in the plan. And one of the goals in the strategic plan really speaks to the transformation in education that we're moving toward. it is our goal of increasing student engagement, student success and engagement. And we're addressing it in many ways, but through a shift in our educational practices toward a more student-centered and student-driven approaches to teaching and learning. We know that the shift in education is critical if our students are going to thrive in the complex, rapidly changing world that we live in, that we all live in. We believe students must be able to apply content knowledge to solve real world problems, communicate effectively, and collaborate with others. They really must become self-determined learners, and that is one of our major goals this year. Under the direction of Tina Skehan, our librarian / STEAM / IDL coordinator, teachers have been working collaboratively on this goal of increasing student success and engagement. Teacher teams work together to plan interdisciplinary units of study that provide students with opportunities to be in the driver's seat when it comes to how and what they learn. And it's quite magical to see the transformation that happens when students are given voice and choice and ownership of their learning. And so we're going to show you a small snippet of what it looks like in the school. And Tina Skehan and some students helped with this video. Just make sure. I hope you.
Okay, so what are you doing in IDL right now? At the moment, we're using a program called EdScratch, and we have these little robots, and it's kind of like the program Scratch, and it's coding with blocks, and you can program the robots to do certain things, and it's gonna help us learn coding, and then later on we're gonna do a compost program, so we can help save like food scraps and stuff for the school, and that'll help with the garden so we can grow more food.
Okay, what's been your favorite part of IDL so far?
I kind of like the hands-on learning because it gives you a way to actually experience the things that you're learning, and it helps you visualize with them. So it's not just like learning, like you can actually experience it.
So you prefer that over paper?
Yeah.
Doing paperwork? Okay, thank you.
What are you doing in IDL right now?
Right now we are using programs to make comic books about characters that we've made and making either comic books, memory cards, or a whole bunch of different things that we could make in ordering, like just a type of comic.
What's your favorite part about IDL?
I really like doing hands-on stuff more than computer, and it's just fun that we get a whole bunch of different options of stuff to do.
Oh, huh. Maybe we'll have another Edison. Here you go. All right, Andrew, now get this and bring it to the next one. Oh, God.
No one 50 hours is 5 days.
Get it! Pick it up.
24 hours in a day. 48 hours in 2 days. Ooh.
This is vertical down. Go up.
It's up.
No, it's not.
What's up?
Wait, yeah, we have that.
Oh, okay.
We'll just have a giant
There
there
we go.
oh! to manipulate this.
Put it out.
Don't fling the compost everywhere.
Okay.
Oh!
What was your favorite IDL project so far?
When we made the map.
My favorite project was when we made the map. Why was that your favorite? Because we got to make these little puddles and bushes and roads and stuff like that.
What are some of the projects you'd like to do in the future in STEAM?
I want to make solar-powered planes to fly.
So actually I'm going to go back. Where did it go? Well, I'll find that. Anyway, I hope the video gave you a sense of what we, and when I say we, I mean the students and the staff, are doing to address our goal of student success and engagement. Increasing student success and engagement is one of our 3 strategic plan goals, and also is one of our recovery plan goals, which I'm going to talk about next. Before I go on, could you hear that video, and how is the pacing on the slides? If somebody wants to unmute and just give us a little bit of feedback on that.
It was the sound was fine.
Okay, you could hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right.
The only suggestion I have is no acronyms. What's IDL? Make sure everyone knows that.
Everybody knows that. Okay. And I don't know what just happened. The slide seems to have disappeared, but I'll find it. So in the spring of last year, we were tasked by the Agency of Education to create a recovery plan that would address the needs of our students brought on by the pandemic. We worked diligently with staff and teams to align the recovery plan, our recovery plan, with our newly adopted strategic plan, so that we could make efficient use of our resources to support our kids. We had the hope that the FY22 school year this year would be a year of recovery and a return to a more normal school year for our students and our staff. And although this year has been anything but normal, I'm happy to report that we have made significant progress on all 3 of our goals. I just shared some of the progress we've made on our student engagement, our student success and engagement goal, and the other 2 goals that we have identified are culture and student wellness, and information and communication, and I'll give you a little update on those as well. So we know how very, very important it is to create partnerships with our school and the community and our parent group, and it's been really hard over the past 2 years not having our parents and community members in our school building. But we've worked really hard to keep people informed through and connected in a variety of ways. Some of those are our centralized weekly updates, our newsletters, and that's school newsletters and classroom newsletters, our social media, and our websites. A couple of other things that we've been focused on, the curriculum and instruction department. I think specifically Brittany, as the recovery coordinator, has worked on a data dashboard, which is linked to the curriculum website, and people can go and look at how we're doing in terms of academics and some of our social emotional tools. that collect data on how kids are doing. A highlight is our community dinners, which I talked about a little bit earlier. We've continued those. We've transformed them so that we can still provide really pretty delicious locally produced meals for community members. Anybody that signs up can come and get them, and we love having people drive up and just say hi and check in and get a great meal from the school. So those are some of the ways we've been working towards our communication and information goal. Our third major goal, and one of our most important goals in any year, but particularly during the recovery period of the pandemic, is creating a school culture where all students thrive, and ensuring that we meet the diverse needs of all our students. We do this through our multi-tiered system of supports, which is sometimes referred to as MTSS system. The mission of our MTSS system is to create a systemic approach to decision-making for excellence and equity within a culture of continuous improvement that focuses on successful outcomes for all students. And I'm going to break that down a little bit because that's a lot of verbiage, a lot of educational jargon. But some of the needs that are addressed through our multi-tiered system of supports include academic needs, social emotional needs, behavioral needs, mental health needs, food insecurity, physical health, attendance. All areas of student need are addressed through the system. And we meet the needs in a variety of ways and by using a variety of resources. So the question that drives our system, our MTSS system, is what does each student need to succeed? And I'll outline the process a little bit so you have a picture of what it looks like. So a teacher may be noticing that a student isn't getting something or is struggling in a particular area. They use data, observations, their own professional expertise, and they would bring this information to the pod level interventionist. And we have 4 pods in our school, and each pod has an interventionist assigned. That teacher would work with the interventionist to collect the data and assign this student a time to talk at the next MTSS Kid Talk meeting. And the team would meet, which includes the interventionist, the teacher teams, special educators sometimes, our SEIs, our social emotional interventionists at times, just depends on the needs of the student. And the team meets and they brainstorm and they come up with strategies that the teacher or the team can use to help address the needs the student has. Those could include anything from adjusting instructional practices to double dosing of particular content, to visual tools, to preferential seating in the classroom, to differentiated instruction. So it just really is tailored to the needs of the child. The teacher will implement the strategies for a period of time, and then the team will come back together to revisit how it's going. If it's going well, that's great. If it's not going well, the team will brainstorm again. Oftentimes parents are brought into the process so that they can lend their expertise on what's going on and what might help. Teacher will try some other strategies, some other resources may be put into place or used, and then the team meets again. Our MTS meetings are weekly. Every week on Tuesdays, the teams meet. If the student still is not progressing, a meeting is held, and we develop student success plans, and those plans are tailored to the student. They might involve the interventionist meeting with the student on a regular basis. They might include check-in, check-outs with our behavioral team. It just depends on the needs of the student. And we, use those plans and we check in if we still have concerns, and we've done a lot of data collecting. We've tried a lot of different things. Then the child may be referred to Child Find, which is kind of a first step in whether or not a formal evaluation is done on the particular student. So that's what it looks like in practice in our school, and actually within our SU. We've worked hard to align our systems across schools within the SU. this is our MTSS teams are broken down into really two teams, but they work together, work in conjunction with each other. This is our MTSS academic team. They are currently serving 110 students in our school, or 44% of our student population, individually or in small groups. And that number fluctuates, depending on the needs of the students. But that's our team, and they work hard at supporting teachers and students, collecting data, implementing strategies, and working with kids. The second team is we call our behavioral support team, our social emotional behavioral support team. Excuse me. And this team is made up of 2 school counselors, an HCRS clinician, 2 social emotional interventionists, our assistant principal, our We Are Hope coach, and our homeschool coordinator. And they're an amazing team. I will say the stress of the pandemic has caused many students to suffer from mental health issues related to anxiety, stress, and depression. It has also caused an increase in challenging behaviors in our school. Our team meets weekly to discuss students who need social and emotional or behavioral support. They create plans, apply resources, meet with families and other local agencies to ensure that the needs of these students are being addressed. The team as a whole works with all HES students at the universal level through social emotional learning classes taught by one of our school counselors, our advisory program at the middle school level, and in-class supports. They also work with students who need more on an individual and small group basis. And some of the data I have to share with you is from October to January of this year, our social emotional interventionists, and we have 2 of them, have provided roughly 250 proactive interactions, which look like check-in and check-out of a student or scheduled breaks. And that's 250 proactive interactions per month from October through January. And they were called roughly 200 times per month to respond to a student in need of support for de-escalation, regulation, or validation. So they are busy, and we are fortunate to have them helping. They allow teachers to continue teaching in the classrooms when students need a little bit of something more, or another adult to help them. Our school counselors, our We Are Hope coach, our HCRS clinician are servicing 70 plus students weekly with additional small group sessions each week. So that's a look at our MTSS system and how we're addressing some of our goals in the strategic plan. And if there are any questions for me, I'm happy to take them, but otherwise I'm going to turn it over to Nikki.
We can't hear you, Nikki.
Hey, maybe I should take myself off mute. I did a great job on mute. So we're looking at just an overview of everything that goes into the budget and the budget itself. So high school enrollment, student enrollment, high school enrollment, budget goals, changes from FY22 to 23, projections and rates, the supervisory union assessment and tax rates. You can go, Christine.
Yep.
Actually, go back a slide because I just looked over the notes that I have on this page. Just as part of the presentation, we just want to note that Hartland is essentially tied with Windsor and Norwich as the 3rd most populous town in Windsor County, which was surprising to me when I heard that. We take care of between 450 to 460 3 to 18-year-olds in our community, and they represent about 14% of our town. And the last number that I had is that we have a poverty rate of 43% in our student population as measured by free and reduced applications. So, and I'm going to say, I think that poverty rate is a bit hidden in the town and that you don't see it unless you experience it. Next slide. We got to get better at this on the remote side. This is challenging. So I have notes on my other screen. We've got approximately 26 kids coming into kindergarten for FY23. And Christine, we're still waiting on the PK number.
Yeah, Linda was working on that, so we'll have that before the meeting.
Okay. And then as a result of the pandemic, we lost 11 students to home study that did not return. And we assume we're still.
You might be losing a couple more.
So as you can see, our numbers have been declining. They're not declining precipitously, but we need to keep an eye on that and how we look at our funding and our budgeting going forward. So this is our history of high school costs. High school costs continue to go up. I will note that our high school tuition, the tuitioning students to high school is unpredictable because we don't know how many students we're going to have from year to year. We get a lot of move-ins because of people want to take advantage of our high school tuition, and we can't predict how many people are going to do that. But in this particular budget, based on our best predictions, our high school tuition costs account for a little over 30% of our budget, and they represent roughly 34% of our kids. So these numbers are high, but they are in line with the number of students that they represent. Next. Okay. So this is a history of special education costs, and it's gone up significantly in the past 4 years, but so has the number of students that we service. Approximately 23% of the student population in the supervisory union is in the special education system, and this is higher than the state or national average. David, do you know what the number is nationally? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, I don't, Nikki, but we could find out.
Yeah, I'm going to put a note in there.
When students' needs are being met in a school system, generally the special ed numbers are lower. When school districts don't meet student needs, you see a massive increase in special education numbers.
Yeah, I can get that number.
Okay, thanks, David. Sorry, I'm writing a note to myself. Okay. Next slide, Christine. So our goals in the, we need to change this to the 23 budget. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. I just changed it. I don't know if it's going to appear on your screen. So the goals for the budget are to maintain a staffing plan and program studies which support the whole child emotionally, intellectually, socially, and physically, to meet the Vermont state education standards, and to retain the trust of voters by bringing forth a responsible budget. So thanks, Christine.
Go.
But no, you're good. That's all right.
Okay.
Perfect timing. So we just want to look at how Hartland is meeting the state education quality standards. For K3, you're looking to have less than 20 students per teacher. Right now we have a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 14. This is intentional in the recovery to increase the teacher to student ratio. In 4 through 8, the goal is less than 25 students. Our 4 through 8 classes are a little larger with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 18. And then all core teachers, and this really applies to our middle school, all core subject teachers are teaching less than 100 students total. And right now we have 4 core subject teachers in our middle school grades 7 through 8, and they service approximately 64 students each. Curriculum requirements are to have PE twice a week. and we have 2 PE teachers that also teach health. For approximately 300 students, you're supposed to have a full-time library media specialist. And we do have a library media specialist that also specializes in STEAM. Go to the next slide. We teach global citizenship through our Spanish program, with 1 teacher serving K-5 and 152 students, and then 6-8 serving 91 students. Our artistic expression goals are met through 2 music teachers teaching instruments, choral, music theory, and drama. And together they serve 243 students. And we have an art teacher that also serves 243 students. For behavioral supports, Christine mentioned some of that in the MTSS discussion. But we have 1 assistant principal that primarily focuses on behaviors. We have 2 social emotional interventionists, and then we also contract with HCRS, We Are Hope, and we have a BCBA on board as well. BCBA is a
Board certified behavior analyst.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I got the certified behavioral analyst, but I couldn't remember what the first B was. Okay. Screen's going haywire. Okay. We also have sorry, my screen is turning bright pink. Because my computer is not. So we have the state recommends 1 guidance counselor per 300 students. We have 2 guidance counselors that also teach social emotional learning, and they provide group and individual counseling. And we have found that we definitely need to have 2 counselors that better services our student population. Go forward, Christine. So Christine presented on our multi-tiered systems of supports. And I wanted to kind of show how the multi-tiered systems of support show up in our budget. So for our academic MTSS, we are adding a 0.5 full-time equivalent interventionist. And that was specifically to service the incoming 5th and 6th grades. And then we're also increasing the music positions to a full 2-person full-time equivalent, which means a 0.4 increase from what we have right now. And this is to provide equity. Right now, not all students have the ability to take to learn instruments and to be exposed to all aspects of music. And by increasing, we're hoping that we can increase that access and that provide better equity. For MTSS, social and emotional and behavioral services, we're going to maintain the existing services that we have right now. We're trying to address food insecurity by updating the serving line, which will improve food quality for all. For physical health, we are proposing to fund winter activities for all. And this is an equity thing. In one of our previous board meetings, one of the board members mentioned that when she was growing up, skiing was for rich people and therefore they couldn't ski. And that has been something that's bothered the board for years. That particular comment really hit it home for me. So we think that if we're going to raise Vermonters, then all Vermonters need to know how to access our winters.
I'm sorry to interrupt because I've got censored on the chat, so I can't chat anymore.
The public part of the meeting is over, and we're not taking public comment anymore.
Oh, okay, because I was just curious. You said you
no.
like physical activity, and
Thank
my
you,
kids
Kara.
are
Yes, we know exactly what your issues are, and we're not going to discuss that in a public forum. Thank you.
Okay, because you didn't respond to any of my emails, so that's why I'm trying to get it out in the public forum so that someone actually responds to me.
Okay. So for our student-related teacher collaboration, we are trying to keep the class sizes small while we're in our recovery. And we're trying to build in additional collaboration time in the school day for the teachers. So we'll keep going. So this just kind of bullets out some of the things I discussed. We're increasing the music position by 0.4. We had a 5%, a little over 5% increase in our healthcare costs. Staff wages went up based on increase in the workday to align with the SU and with negotiations. We've included the change to special education costs. High school students are a fixed tuition cost, and we try to estimate the number of students that are going to high school and where they're going. We're adding a 0.5 full-time equivalent intervention position to address some reading and math deficiencies in our 5-6 grades. And we're looking to provide locally funded winter activities for all students.
Can we stay on that slide just for a minute? Are you thinking we're going to need numbers next to those, Nikki, or no?
No.
No, okay.
Unless you think we do. That's why we're presenting, to make sure that you guys think it's good.
Well, I would leave it up to the board what they think, but I mean, we don't have any, I don't think it's necessary, but it's really up to the board if you think we need to put, because we could cost all of that out.
It might be good just to have it on
here. I
hand.
had to go to suicide 6, but then you called the rec department and told them to ban them. So
Kara, I'm trying to make a comment right now.
Yeah, Kara, this is a board meeting. This is not yours.
I would say I would have those numbers like in our pocket, so we can certainly answer that. So it doesn't have to be something getting back. So it ends up being, you know, in the public record. So we have those if we need them.
Sounds good.
Isn't there a discussion of the numbers that are on another slide?
Well, there's the gross, the large numbers, and they
Right.
Show the breakout of where the increases were by line item, but not these. I mean, these are all folded into much broader line items.
Yeah, so maybe it's about maybe putting the slides in the right, or in an order. You might get people thinking about it, but with this general slide, and then, or if you could toggle back and forth between that section that you were just talking about, Nikki, and then.
Okay. Well, the
I
next
think-
slide is the proposed budget.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know. Okay, so there's the fine print disclaimer.
Anyways, I agree with David that the slide you had without the numbers is fine.
Okay. Okay, and I'm just putting a note in there for Christine and I to add the numbers in the lower text so that we can find them easily.
Do you want me to go back to this one, Nikki? We didn't really read it, but it doesn't
No,
change.
that's the fine print that I haven't changed in years.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the proposed budget. As you can see, wages are a large portion of our budget, approximately a quarter of it. Benefits also cover a good amount. The SU assessment, which includes special education, covers a little less than 30% of our budget. And like I said before, tuition to our high schools also accounts for about 30% of our budget. And Christine, that number is different from when I did the.
Yeah, Ed just updated this today, Nikki.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna go back since the number changed and make sure that I have it right elsewhere in the presentation. Okay, so and so I don't have a lot of other things to talk about on this slide. Are there board members that think that I should highlight anything else? It just kind of shows a breakdown of where the money's going.
There's something fishy with the numbers there unless I look at the percent of budget for both assessment and tuition, and it's identical, but the numbers ahead of the numbers ahead of it to the left are not identical.
That explains why my tuition number is probably.
Yeah. We'll check with Ed on that one, Scott.
Thank
Good
you.
noticing. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going back to my 30. I think it's 30.8. But we'll check with Ed.
Do we have another slide that shows like how the assessments break out?
I think it's the next slide.
Oh, yeah,
This one?
next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what, just because that seemed to like stand out to me as the biggest kind of number change.
It is.
So just want to address that.
Yeah.
You want me to go back, Nikki? Are you done with this
No,
one?
I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need to go back. So we had an increase in, this are the assessments from at the SU level. We had an increase in the business office, and that's due to adding a position. And that's because so much more work is coming out of the supervisory union that we need to staff the supervisory union appropriately. The special education costs increased by 7%. The early childhood program increased by 6.5%. And that's because we have more students entering, correct? Yeah, so that's just a direct correlation to how many students are using the service. The food service budget has decreased, and that's a result of the way that we allocated the assessment within the supervisory union. So the supervisory union total budget is up 7%, and those are the numbers reflected that I just presented. Okay, next slide. So how does this impact the actual tax rate? At this point, this is our worst case estimate from the state. We do not actually know what the tax rate will be when the legislature finally sets the numbers. But right now we're estimating that it'll be a 4.6 cent increase over last year, which means that for a housing value of $100,000, it will increase by $46. And you can read the rest of the numbers. So that's it. The next one is questions and comments. Does the board have any questions, concerns, things that you think I should hit? Things that we didn't hit?
I don't know if it's worth mentioning anything about, universal meals in the MTSS kind of section, and that we've been feeding all kids for free for so long for now. And so like how many kids we could be feeding every day.
Yeah. So if we were to move to universal meals permanently, or we.
Yeah, like just a reflection on what we have done, like when we're talking about what we've done. And then, if we can do universal meals, that would be great, but we'll see.
Agreed.
I think it sounds good, Nikki. This is Colleen.
Yeah.
Like you're hitting all the points that you need to.
Okay.
It's a good length.
Okay. Yeah.
Rates well. Sorry.
For the meeting notes, I'm just kind of putting in a sentence of like, reviewed the presentation for the town meeting. Do you want to put a link to this in these notes, or do you just want to wait till the town meeting to?
No, we'll wait till the town meeting.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. Usually I do put a link to Christine's report and my report. So if you send that to me, I'll add those links.
So speaking of links, it'll be the town that will communicate the meeting hookup for February 22nd.
No, that should be us.
That's us, yeah, and it's part of the warning. And as a matter of fact, I think,
okay,
I think I've already started to include it in, some of those community e-blasts. I think maybe it would be good to get it on the listserv at some point, but it's a Google Meet. We established it. It's a Google Meet link. And so the town won't have anything to do with that link.
And David, have you coordinated? I see with CATV on here. Have you coordinated with CATV to be part
No,
of
but
that?
we will.
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
I think we should get on that.
David, should I look for that? Should any board members look for that in their calendar? I don't see it yet. Is it gonna be that
Yeah, we might do that too.
Yeah, let me see. It should be there, but let me just take a quick look. What's the date?
Feb 22.
Feb 22.
Yeah.
It's there. I just don't think I've invited the board yet.
Okay, and it's at 7 p.m.
Yeah. And then, of course, it's a public link, so. I'll do that right now, so you'll get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there any further things we need to discuss on the budget presentation? Okay. I'm gonna bring this up now, even though it's kind of part of setting the meeting, the next meeting agenda. Our next meeting would fall on March 1st, which is the same day as voting. And so maybe I'm putting that bug in your ear right now. I don't know if that impacts if anybody's helping to count ballots, or if we should plow ahead, or if we think that the community is not well served by us meeting on the 1st. I don't know. Let you guys think about that before we set the next meeting date. Okay, so I'm going to move on to. Whoop, did I hear? Okay, I'm going to move on to a book report that I am going to give on a book that I read that was eye-opening. So let me get set up, and then if I click share.
Wait, so my kids haven't been to school since last week and we're going to hear a book report. I just want to get that out there.
Yep, this is the board meeting, Kara. Thank you. Okay.
And the purpose of the board is to serve children in this community or a social gathering? I just don't understand.
Kara, we can't discuss an individual child's issue in a public forum.
You have not responded to my individual child issue for 2 weeks.
That doesn't change the rule.
This is not an appropriate forum for that response.
I tried an appropriate forum and I got no response.
Kara,
you're not going to get one tonight here at this point either.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I look forward to your book report. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Okay. Okay, let me figure it out. Hold on, technical. And if okay. So I can't see you guys now. Can you guys see me, and can you see my screen?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And does it look like a normal presentation? Or does it have my notes in it too?
No,
you're good to go.
No,
It looks good.
Okay, great. I've never done this on a Google Meet. So, okay. So the book that I read is called Nowhere to Hide, and it's by Jerome Schultz. And this was recommended to me because I'm a mom of a child that's ADHD and dyslexic. And I myself am ADHD and dyslexic. And so I've had my own school experiences, and I have dealt with my daughter's school experiences as well. So I chose to give this book report because being dyslexic, I've read very few books about parenting. And being ADHD, I tend to fly by the seat of my pants on the parenting front. So this book was recommended me years ago. I never got around to reading it, as I just described. And then it was recommended to me again this fall, and I finally read it. It spoke to me in a way that very few other books have. It highlighted some of the struggles that I had in school personally, and many of the descriptions of the children in the book could easily be my child. My child is terrified of school, has always been terrified of school. And just to kind of highlight the level of terror that she's had during one period of time, we actually had to childproof the car doors because she was trying to jump out of a moving car on the way to school. So it's that level of terror. A little bit more about my experience in school. I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until I was a junior in high school. prior to that revelation, I was labeled lazy and immature by our teachers, or by my teachers. And I was so traumatized by the experience of reading out loud in school that I refused to read out loud in front of anyone, including my husband, until I started reading to our kids as infants. And just for people that know me and know me in the school, the first time that I read out loud in public since the age of 16 was when I did the Four Winds puppet shows a couple years ago. That was a huge step for me, and it helped me overcome a lot of my fears of reading. And then I also want to highlight, I had an interesting interaction with a community member about a year ago when we were in the height of trying to figure out what was going on with COVID, and he had some questions, and I had directed him and said, you really should talk to the principal. She'll be able to answer a lot of these questions a lot more directly than I will. And he said, no way. And I thought, well, why won't you reach out to the principal? And he's terrified of principals. He is in his late 70s, has been out of school for 50 plus years, and he was too afraid to call Christine and have a conversation with her because she was a principal. And so he told me about his school experience, and he is also one of the kids that I'm talking about today. So we'll get started. So the outline of the book and this presentation is I'm going to start with a story of two different kids. We'll talk about brain science and the effect of stress on the brain. We'll talk about saving face, which is an acronym. We'll talk about how to de-stress the kids' environment. The book provides some stress tests so you can kind of get a quick look at which kids might be under stress. The book also provides some guidance on the hybrid teacher, which kind of looks like a perfect person that doesn't exist in reality, but I think the guidance is still worth presenting. And then I have some thoughts myself moving forward. So we'll get started. So this is a tale of two kids at school. So one example is a student, Eli. Eli's always been successful in math. For Eli, math is like solving mysteries. The new mysteries are fun because he's been successful before. And he knows what to do, and he knows how to ask for help. And he's in control of his schooling situation. We have another kid named Caesar. Caesar is a 5th grader with ADHD and a learning disability. He hates absolutely everything about school. Most days he's observed joking around, going frequently to the bathroom, to the nurse's office, throwing paper in class, being distracting. Caesar's smart, but he hasn't ever been successful in school. Schoolwork that's easy for his classmates is nearly impossible for him. Caesar and his mom often get into big fights when they're trying to get his homework done, and both of them frequently end up in tears. So we're going to come back to Caesar, but to give a glimpse of Caesar's experience, when a teacher asks the students to get out their homework, we see Caesar slump down in his chair, and he puts his head down and he starts to shut down. So now we're going to talk about the brain. So there are kind of 3 primary locations that stress impacts on the brain. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for, is critical for carrying out a specific set of skills called executive functions. And those include working memory, cognitive flexibility, inhibition control, and complex problem solving and planning. And then there's the amygdala, and that reacts to stress and emotional arousal. The amygdala facilitates emotional reactions, including responding to stress, fear, and danger, and it cues the body's fight, flight, or freeze responses. The amygdala also plays an important role in modulating emotional memories. And then the hippocampus is the part of the brain that's responsible for housing our learning and our memories. And these slides, just for point, were taken from a different website that's called Stress in the Brain and Turnaround for Children. I chose these because I'm a visual person and the book was all words. So So just take a look at how stress affects the brain. A little bit of positive stress, you might get an increased heart rate for a biometric marker. A little bit of stress helps us be focused and energized, and it helps build a healthy response to cope with stress in the future. The tolerable amount of stress is a little bit more serious, but it's temporary in its physical response. Experience has the potential to negatively impact development, but support from trusting relationships helps limit the long-term impacts of that stress. A toxic stress is an intense, frequent, with a PR, chronic stress activation of the stress response system. It's typically people don't have access to protective relationships in a toxic stress environment. And in a child, it can change the way the child's brain and body develop. So then looking at toxic stress and its effect on the brain, in a toxic stress environment, the amygdala becomes hyperreactive, and kids become extremely sensitive to particular triggers. The prefrontal cortex, the connections decrease, resulting in impulsivity, impaired planning, reduced reasoning, inflexibility, and a reduced working memory. And that causes difficulty regulating thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The hippocampus, the stress causes an impairment which damages the ability to create, store, and retrieve memories. And these are structural changes that occur when a child is under continuous toxic stress. So it's not just the emotional things that you see in a classroom. It's also physical changes within a child's brain. So there's additional impacts and lingering impacts for stress. Chronic stress activates neural pathways that lead to the overdevelopment of areas of the brain that are involved in fear and anxiety. This activation of fear results in the underdevelopment of other neural pathways. The brain is so busy protecting itself from the stress and trying to minimize that stress that it actually changes the way the brain functions. And as a result of those changes, the brain can't do what it needs to do in school. Additionally, kids that have a learning disability and ADHD, because of the way that they come across, they're impulsive, they have poor receptive and expressive language, poor social perception, they're more likely than other children to be bullied. And studies of bullying and neural imaging have shown that the neural transmissions affect learning, memory, and emotional reactivity. And it's also important to note that bullying tends to be an intentional act, and it is defined as an intentional act, but sometimes unintentional, because these children are under such stress, unintentional acts can feel like bullying to those children. Even when teachers and other professionals try to get these kids to move forward, the memory of their previous traumatic events lingers on, which limits the efforts of these students to reach a higher level of competence. So I'm going to go back to the student Caesar because I think it's really important to kind of see. I felt like this part of the book was important, and so I'm going to read some portions of the book. So remembering his struggle with his mom the night before, Caesar is slumped down in his chair, wishing he could slip quietly under his desk. He's not reaching for his homework. He's not hearing the words of his teacher. He's having a Charlie Brown moment, hearing only a muted series of noises coming from inside his head. Waka, 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 waka. Caesar feels a compelling need to tell someone about how he feels, but he can't find the words to do it. Even if he could, he'd be too frightened of the consequences. He might incur the anger or frustration of his teacher, and he's likely to be on the receiving end of whispers, snickering, or outright laughter of his classmates. He's been down this road before, so he sits quietly, but his body's on full alert. His nervous system is under siege. but you have to know what to look for. If we zoom in the camera and the microphone on Caesar, we noticed his increased heart rate, tense muscles, sweaty palms, and shallow breathing. We might also notice his eyes darting back and forth, scanning the landscape for danger, or looking down at the desktop to avoid a face-to-face confrontation. Caesar's heart rate and blood pressure are up. Breathing is shallow. The blood is flowing to his legs. No blood is flowing to his stomach. Who needs to waste time digesting food now? His pupils are wide to see the danger more clearly. His muscles are tense, and he's ready to sprint. So I go back and look at that picture because I've seen my child in this mode more times than I can even imagine. So what the author describes this situation as saving face. And so kids that don't want to be faced with tasks that they can't do, they're afraid of those tasks. They're afraid of being asked of something that they know that they're gonna fail. So that moves to avoidance. So they try to avoid those tasks, which might mean trips to the nurse, minor getting in trouble so that they can get removed from the room, or even just putting their head down on the desk so that they can get away from it. This process is all part of being stressed. And eventually, when the stress doesn't go away and they can't get control of that stress, then they're scared and they might employ maladaptive behaviors to to protect their self-image. These kids want to do anything they can to not be proven that they're a failure again. So this leads to what we see. The saving face often leads to fight, flight, or freeze. These kids are afraid that they're going to fail again. They want to avoid the threat, which I, as a dyslexic, spelled as a treat. And they don't want to do it, and they'll say, I won't. They'll avoid eye contact. They'll go sharpen their pencil. They'll put their head down on their desk. If the stress escalates and they can't get control of the situation, they'll do anything to get out of it. And that's, I think, where we left Caesar, is he's in that moment with his head down on the desk. And if he can't get out of the stress, there's a chance that he may choose to flip the desk, throw a book, tear up paper, and he may lash out verbally or physically. Any way to escape is a success. And so even though they're probably going to get punished for flipping a desk or throwing a book or paper, and the moment escaping the threat is success. And I wanted to take a note on the stress response. In a non-ADHD kid, they may slow down here and feel their heart rate. They may notice their sweaty palms. They may notice that they're not their normal selves. In an ADHD kid without a lot of training, they're just going to blow right through this and not notice any of that and move straight into the escape mode. Moving on. And actually, I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions. And since I can't see you guys, maybe just say something.
Nikki, thank you for that presentation. It sounds a lot like the experiences my children have had as a result of being at Hartland Elementary School. I appreciate your description of what happens when kids are under chronic stress and no adult is there to help them.
Okay, if there's no other comments from the board, I'll just keep going. So a big part of the problem for a lot of the kids with ADHD and learning disabilities is they're trying to use behaviors to control the situation that they otherwise have no control over. The kids don't have control over what they're assigned. They don't have control over what they do in the classroom. And so they're going to use the tools that they have to gain control, which is maladaptive tools that the behaviors that they use can make teachers feel hurt or frustrated or disappointed, or like the student is preventing them from doing their job. The takeaway here, and this is a quote directly out of the book, If you're a teacher and a student's behavior makes you feel like you can't do the job you were trained to do, this might be an indication that the student is trying to control the situation you were both in. And I think that that's an important and very hard thing when you're exposed to step back and say, wait a second, this isn't working for either of us. And so for these kids, the best way to combat stress is to gain control. And so we talked about some of the behaviors that these kids are going to use in order to gain control of the situation. And so this is where, and I know that Christine and teachers and everybody has been doing a lot of work on trying to separate misbehavior from stress behavior. And that's why this book was so eye-opening to me, is because it really dug into the brain science behind how we end up with this stress behavior. So we talked about what it looks like for a kid under chronic stress, and we have a bit more of an understanding of what it's like to be ADHD and LD in school. So the author has the acronym called de-stress, which is his method to help combat the stress that those students feel and to help them feel like they're a more successful part of the educational environment. And the first part is to define the condition. And then I'll just go through these because I go through them in more detail. And then there's educate, speculate, which speculate on what can be done, to teach the child, to reduce the risk, provide exercise, to a pathway to success, and to strategize. So defining these more closely, define the condition, and that step by itself can take months. So make sure that there's consensus on what the child's challenges are, whether it's dysgraphia or dyslexia or ADHD, just getting an understanding of what the barriers are to learning for that child. Educate the child on what their barriers to learning are specifically for them, because only an informed child can be a self-advocate. The next step, and those two steps right there are a long period of time. The next step is to speculate, to think about what the child's strengths and assets are and what challenges they're going to face. And so by thinking ahead, what's getting in the way of the success and what can we do to minimize the disappointments and failures that that child feels. Then we need to teach the child strategies that will meet their specific needs and maximize their success. And this is giving the students the tools to take control. And in that, by giving the student those tools, they're able to convey to others what tools they need. Then we need to reduce the risk in the learning environment. So create a learning environment that focuses on success for that child specifically, and that minimizes the risk of failure. And so this may be small classes, individualized attention and support, providing time and space to reinforce learning, decreasing the distractions that that child faces. And I know, like, one of the frustrations that our family has constantly run up against is right now our math program is reading based, and that's an enormous challenge for a child that has reading difficulties. Kids need exercise, and so we need to provide physical activity to reduce the stress, and we need to collect evidence and provide that evidence to the child so that as they grow up, they can see, oh, if I'm active, then that'll help me feel less stress. These kids need to feel success. And I think that this is one of the hardest parts of the de-stress model to build, is that when these kids are facing failure, multiple times an hour on some days, we need to find a way that they can experience success more often than failure. And so we need to make sure that the fear, frustration, and failure are overshadowed by those successes. We need to help the child get confidence and control, and learn that they can be a competent member of the classroom. And we have to find a way to help the child internalize the mantra control through competence. So we really need to teach these kids that they're in control of their own learning. And then we need to strategize and to learn, this is kind of pointed at the parent, but to learn what you and the child, to use what you and the child have learned in order to achieve success and move forward. So finding additional opportunities that confirm confidence in a stress-reducing sense of control. And then parents and teachers should make learning from errors part of the plan so the child is able to move from strength to strength. And I'll be honest, I first found the de-stress model, 4 years ago? And still, I'm going back, and we're still really struggling on finding success. If you were to ask my child how big, we talked about a success bucket, how big her success bucket was, and it was about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And so that is really hindering her ability to try new things and to feel in control of her environment. So all of these things are really challenging. And when you've got a kid that's misbehaving in class, it's really hard to figure out whether it's stress behavior or misbehavior. And I'm a parent and not a teacher. And I will tell you that it took me about 4 years of getting misbehavior reports and emails to finally recognize what looked like stress behavior in my own child. So I'm hoping that by presenting this today, that I shorten that time period for other people. So some of the stress tests is if you see a student who's refusing to do the work, either passively or aggressively, that is devaluing the task by saying, this is too easy, this is too stupid, where they may be acting up or acting out to direct attention away from the task, like a kid that may choose to throw a paper towel or break a pencil or do anything to get away from doing the challenging task. Kids that act sad or become withdrawn and start to shut down. If you're close enough to the kid to see that they're trembling or have sweaty palms, that their pupils are dilated, their difficulty breathing, that would be a good sign. Kids that become engrossed in a task they are successful in, or one that's fun, and they refuse to stop doing it. And that would be writing a story, doing a drawing. Hopefully we don't have video games happening in school, but just difficulty getting the student to stop doing what they're doing. And then one of the things that's most frustrating, I think, for both teachers and for me as a parent, is that efforts to encourage a kid are met with more resistance. And this, to me, is one of the biggest challenge, is that you see your child can do something successfully, and they finally reached that milestone where they can do it successfully, but they can only remember all of the previous failures. So you know that they can do it. You know that they have the whole skill set to do it, but they are absolutely not going to try it. And I think that this is the most challenging part for me as a parent, and that's what leads to the most fights and leads to the most tears. Another stress test is asking an adult to stay close. So being really, really clingy with one adult in the building. So I'm going to try and move fast now, but I think that this presentation of the hybrid teacher. So the hybrid teacher is a list of teacher traits that the author presents as a way to build bridges between curriculum and all kids, especially those with learning disabilities and ADHD. I'm going to go with the author's note that says the hybrid teacher is always a twin or has been cloned, so that one of them can sleep, eat, and do research on the best teaching practices and go to the toilet while the other clone teaches. I think when you read the list of the hybrid teacher, it definitely looks impossible. And on a personal note, because I'm not an educator and I'm a parent, I'm nervous to present these traits because no human can actually accomplish all of them. On top of that, we're in the middle of a pandemic, which makes this list laughable. But I think it's a good list that that people can look at to provide ideas, or if they're frustrated with a particular student interaction, they may be able to look back and reflect on this list and see if there might be ways that they can meet the challenge. So here's the list of the hybrid teacher. The hybrid teacher understands the relationships between emotion and cognition. So that's the discussion of the brain that we had earlier. Knows that students learn in different ways, focuses on the learner first and the curriculum and testing. I added in testing second. Demonstrates the ability to expose students to a variety of stimuli, knowing that some students learn through art or music or through physical activity. Is guided and energized in finding out what facilitates effective learning and what gets in the way. The hybrid teacher praises the process that students use more often than the product itself. Understands that it's not about having kids work harder, but rather having those kids work smarter. Knows that it's important to separate skill instruction from content acquisition. And I'm going to pause on this comment for a second. I think that, and this is me, the non-teacher, I think that the introduction of the Common Core and No Child Left Behind and the intense focus on reading and writing and math content has really hurt the content acquisition. And so my daughter in 5th grade now has said that this is the first year where she's actually learning something that's interesting. And I think that is what's causing her to engage in her current learning. And that was a real challenge previously when it was just about the mechanics of how to read, which is really challenging. The hybrid teacher is willing to take a risk when it comes to advocating for a student with learning disabilities or ADHD in the classroom. They examine classroom practices to identify what works and what doesn't. They know how to work in a team with the student as a key member of that team. And I think this is important to stop and listen to what that student has to say. They understand that language and cultural factors play an important role in learning. And they're able to cover the curriculum by understanding the child first. So going back, that list of hybrid teacher is terrifying and embarrassing as a parent to present to any teachers that may be listening. But I also think it's worth having that list to be able to go back and reflect. So how do we move forward knowing all of this information? I'm sharing this book because it was an aha moment for me. The book has so many descriptions of nonsensical kid behavior that when presented through the lens of brain development and the effects of stress on the brain, it all of a sudden makes more sense. And I think some of the biggest takeaways is to find ways to connect with these kids. I think just knowing that an adult has their back is one of the most important things that can happen. And then to also find ways to give them some control over their school environment. And I'll say that one of the things that we ended up doing this year is if we just told our daughter that she can call and I can pick her up anytime, any day, no questions asked. She took advantage of that once. And after that, she said that knowing that she was in control of that aspect of her day made it so that she could make it through the whole day. And I think that was phenomenal. And that was such an easy way to give her some control. The book provides some tools to help dig in with students to try and figure out what might be driving some behaviors. If you think that they're stress behaviors, you can use these tools to try and figure out what's going on. So this is a control bullseye. And so the student is able to pinpoint things that they're in control of, things that are out of their control, and things that they don't even want to be in control of. And then some other tools that the book provides in the appendix is kind of a ratings chart of things that I'm in control of and things that are out of the control and things that are in control. And I've just put little snippets of this chart. I think it really helps dig down to where the student is really struggling. And then there's another chart of how I feel about my learning, and just, some of the questions in there are, I feel stupid. And the student could rate as, that's usually the case. Sometimes that's the case, and that's not actually me. And then I act up when I'm embarrassed in school. So if you can get a kid to actually admit that some of their stress behaviors may be actual embarrassment behaviors. And so I shared this book, and at that point, I'm going to try to figure out how to end the slideshow. Okay, and then I can come join you. Okay, so sorry, that was a long presentation. It was a really helpful book. I found it so helpful that I immediately forward the links to David and Christine, and they've ordered several copies for the school, because I think when I found this book, I could picture my own child, but then I've heard stories of other people's children. And just, it's so hard to understand when a kid's flipping over a desk that that in some cases they're not flipping over the desk because they're trying to destroy the classroom, but they're flipping over the desk because they're trying to escape the work that they're doing because they're afraid. And I think if we can find a way, like, our behaviors are so intense this year. I just feel like if we can find a way to reach some of these students and try to get to what some of their fears are, and what's maybe causing some of the stress behaviors, maybe we can start to reduce the behaviors that we're seeing in school.
What about the behaviors that are caused by the behaviors of staff members?
Does any board members have any questions?
Yeah, I really appreciate the report, and the slides went by kind of fast, and then I couldn't see them on the small screen.
Oh, sorry, Scott. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
It was great. I mean, there's so much there to think about in your own life, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the board members have struggled with kids that are not in the normal category, and I think that we all. I think maybe my child was a bit of an extreme as far as some of the stress behaviors that she creatively came up with. But I think, I hear about other kids in the school that are struggling, and I just want to find a way that we can help those kids as much as we can.
Can you help my kid?
Nikki, do you want to share a link of your presentation in the notes too?
Yeah, I'll have to make it because it's still a PowerPoint. So it has to
just save it as like a Google Slides or whatever.
Yeah, I'll try to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Beth, that would be an example of something we could link to the minutes. So we've got that.
Christine, I think you've read most of the book. Did you have anything to add?
No, Lindsay and I are both reading it, and it really resonates with the trauma work we've been doing around misbehavior and stress behavior. And we know sometimes we always know behaviors are an indicator of something, usually something more when they're really challenging and consistent over time. So it really aligns with the work that we're engaged in at school, but it is a shift, right? I mean, it's really digging deep and understanding what the needs are and why the student is presenting in the way he or she is presenting. So as I'm reading it, I have one of my own children with challenging behavior. So as a parent, I appreciate it as well. Wish I'd known more when my middle one was younger. But I invited staff tonight. A few came, and I told them that we could watch the presentation at another time as well. So thank you, Nikki. It is the brain science is fascinating, and around this topic, and understanding it really helps you respond in an appropriate way. So much appreciated.
Did you find something in your research about the importance of having trusted adults in a school in order for a student to be able to feel safe? Was that an important part of anything you read?
That's always an important part. Okay, so I think tonight we don't have any items for action. And Christine, if you want me to just share the presentation so you can present it yourself too, I'd be happy.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't need people watching a recording of me. But I'm happy if that's the way you want to do it. So we don't have any items for action for tonight. We need to set the next agenda. And so that's where I kind of gave you guys a preview. So, our next agenda will be the town meeting presentation, which will be our annual meeting. And that'll be on February 22nd. And then our regular meeting would be scheduled for the following Tuesday. What do people think about that?
I mean, the newly elected board members would would have to get sworn in, but I think there'd be time, right, for that to happen, or no?
No, they wouldn't even be elected yet.
Oh, because it's I see.
Counting votes.
Oh, I see. I got you.
Can we just do the next week, the 8th, or is that too much
I think that there's,
on top of each other?
I think that creates problems for other.
Yeah, that would be Weathersfield.
Okay.
Mount Scottney would be the 7th. Weathersfield would be the 8th. You could do the 9th, which is a Wednesday, or go to the next week, which would be the 15th.
And that's school vacation week.
That's school vacation week, exactly.
Yeah, that won't work.
Oh, wait,
How do
no, that's
people-
no, we're in March.
We're
Sorry,
talking
I'm
about March.
February. Yeah.
March.
Challenging.
March.
The dates are exactly the same.
What if we just push the meeting to 7 so that it starts after the polls close, so that there isn't, we're not running up against that.
We have to have our board members sworn in.
Yeah, you wouldn't have.
Well, they're
a-
not.
Right. We wouldn't have the new board members at that meeting. They would be at the next one. But it would just, it wouldn't conflict with active voting.
Wouldn't our current board members still be active if the votes haven't been counted or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really gray area.
You're stuck with us for another month, Scott.
No, because election results have to be
Scott come to as
certified,
many
and that doesn't happen until the next day. So
Right.
we would be fine. It just, I would suggest bumping to 7 so that people who are voting wouldn't be, wouldn't have, if people wanted to attend, it wouldn't conflict with voting.
With the voting time.
I'm okay with that.
That works for me.
Is that everybody's okay with that?
Yeah, I could do.
7.
Sure.
Yeah.
7 first, right?
Yes. Okay. So then we need to set the next agenda. So we're going to need a COVID update.
Yeah, that usually comes out in our reports.
Yeah. And then something else that I wanted to circle back on, but it's not on this agenda. So is there anything anybody wants to circle back on?
I don't know that we'll have more exact path information by then, right? So it might be a little too early to circle back to that.
That should be processed, right?
Yeah, Angie, what were you talking about, Angie? Didn't you mention something about a present, just to kind of review exact path because they hadn't really seen?
Yes,
that?
that'll be at the SU board meeting.
The SU board meeting, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could,
Yeah, I think for the March agenda, because
yeah, not the 23rd,
not
right?
the, yeah.
Yeah.
So will we have the new TMP and exact path to review? Because we reviewed it in the fall.
Yeah, it should be on the dashboard by then.
Okay, so let's plan on reviewing that again and seeing if there's
And,
anything.
again, and it might be good, Nikki, to follow up, even, I know it was a little little bit tight tonight, but I don't know, Christine, how you feel, but just to follow up on that presentation you gave and just kind of, just see places where it might align with, some of the current work, some places where it doesn't align with the current work. I mean, it might be good to take a look at that.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to get feedback on
Yeah.
and what people thought and the brain science of it.
How about the radar list? Is there anything on that radar list that we haven't looked at in a while?
I know. I wanted to raise the question about should I be doing something for the building committee? We were kind of going to let that rest for a little bit, but is that something that I should, try to address again? What do people think?
It might be good to resurrect that.
Yeah, I think we need to have a good, strong understanding of what we have in our building and where we need to move forward. Sorry, dinner is being delivered. Thank you, Trevor. Okay. So yeah, I feel like let's circle back and at least talk about the building committee and how we might be able to move that forward. Because I think—
Could you add something about following discrimination and harassment policies and who has oversight of that when school administrators don't follow policy? Is that something that the board would be willing to address in an agenda?
It's just, sounds like a specific issue, not a general concern.
Right, but I've emailed specific issues and I'm not getting any response. So I'm looking for the board to advocate for my children who are suffering.
Yeah, we won't do that in public session. We can do it in executive session, but not public session.
We can add an executive session to that meeting to address.
My kids have already been out of school since last week, so maybe that's something that could be addressed sooner than later because I've been emailing about it for a week and a half.
Well, I think you also have 2 emails from Christine that invite you to come to a meeting to discuss it.
That was after Christine did not address any of my harassment or discrimination complaints, and I called her out on it. She has not answered any of those discrimination
and that
or
was on
harassment.
Thursday and she was out on Friday. So, I mean, I know.
And then I received an email yesterday and I responded and there was no response until I called her out on it.
Yeah. Well, I know the board will want you to go through Christine first. I know that for a fact.
I have gone through Christine. I have
No, you
gone
haven't.
through
No, you haven't.
Kara, this is a board meeting and you're hijacking the board's agenda. Scott.
I just wanted to double check that we were going to have an executive session tonight.
Yes, we are having an executive session tonight.
Okay. And will the board be reconvening after that?
Probably not.
Okay. So we're going to adjourn and go to an no, we're not going to adjourn.
We'll go to executive session and then we'll come out to adjourn.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I won't be getting any answers tonight about my kids' safety at school. Is that right?
Working. Correct. Okay, so I think we have the agenda for the next meeting, and I'll take a motion to move into executive session.
Well, before we do that, just another nuts and bolts thing. David, I was looking at the calendar and there are 2 SU meetings posted, one for the 23rd of February, one for the 28th.
Yeah, I just deleted the 28th. Yeah.
Okay.
It is the 23rd.
Okay, thank you. So I got to refresh my, and then
Yeah,
go.
you probably won't see it now.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for public session?
So did somebody make a motion to go into executive session?
No, not yet.
I will. I make that motion.
Scott. So Scott makes the motion. It looks like Colleen is second.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to stop. I'll stop recording. Hold on.
Yeah.